Good morning, I'm Kenneth Moten.
And I'm Janae Norman. Here are the top 5 things to know this Wednesday. Number 1, the big debate in Iowa last night.
The presidential hopefuls avoided any major fireworks as they squared off for their final debate before the Iowa caucus. Bernie Sanders denied telling Elizabeth Warren that a woman can't win in 2020.
But the moment getting the most attention happened after the debate when Sanders extended his hand to Warren and she appeared to rebuff it.
Number 2, the articles of impeachment against President Trump are heading to the Senate today, setting the stage for a trial to begin next Tuesday.
Democrats are sending over new evidence, including a note from Rudy Giuliani's indicted associate Lev Parnas, written on hotel stationery. It says, "Get Ukraine's president to announce an investigation into the Bidens."
There's also a text message suggesting that former U.S. Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch was under surveillance in Ukraine before she was fired by President Trump. That message came from Robert Hyde of Connecticut, a Trump supporter running for Congress. No word if these documents will be introduced at trial.
Senators say the trial will start before a decision is made on whether to call witnesses.
On to number 3. Investigators have a new piece of evidence as they look into the shoot-down of a passenger plane over Iran.
New video shows an Iranian missile launching and exploding near the plane, taking out its communications. And then a second missile launches and reaches the jet. Its flaming wreckage was seen then falling to the ground.
Meanwhile, there's new confusion about the plane's black boxes. Iran says they've been sent to France, but French authorities say that's not the case.
Number 4 now, a big development in the Major League Baseball cheating scandal. The Red Sox have fired manager Alex Cora.
Before heading to Boston, Cora was bench coach for the Astros when the league says the Astros used a camera in the outfield stands to steal signals from rival teams. The Astros manager and general manager have already been fired.
But the commissioner's report identified Cora as the potential mastermind. And now the league is investigating if the Red Sox also cheated.
And finally, number 5, the question of the greatest Jeopardy player in history has been settled for now.
Ken Jennings has earned the title of GOAT after beating James Holzhauer and Brad Rutter in 4 games. Jennings was gracious on social media overnight, tweeting, "I know the tournament was supposed to settle the greatest of all time question forever, but let's be honest, I got some breaks."
He also got a trophy from the Alex Trebek.
For me, the greatest of all time. Congratulations.
You, sir. Jennings earned $1 million. Holzhauer and Rutter had to settle for just a little measly, small $250,000.
Just a couple coins. Good morning. Let's get right to that big story. The high-stakes showdown in Iowa. Democrats squaring off for the last time before the first vote.
It was the smallest debate stage so far, featuring only 6 leading candidates. They took aim at President Trump and tackled everything from Iran to health care.
They also addressed the statement allegedly made by Senator Bernie Sanders that a woman can't win the White House in 2020. But it's a moment after the debate that's getting a whole lot of attention this morning.
Megan Tavrizian, let's bring you on in because you got all those highlights, lowlights, however you want to put it. It was it wasn't that big of a debate, right?
No fireworks.
Yeah, I don't think so. It was just kind of more calm, I would guess you could say. Good morning, Kenneth and Janae. The 6 top Democratic candidates weighed in on everything from the U.S. drone strike in Iran to health care, but they held back from bitter attacks. Even when Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders addressed the comment Sanders said he never made.
In the 7th and smallest Democratic presidential debate yet, 6 candidates took the stage with an unexpected dose of Iowa nice.
Bernie is my friend, and I am not here to try to fight with Bernie.
Candidates speaking about climate change.
In Australia, there are literally tornadoes made of fire taking place.
And health care, with former Vice President Joe Biden hitting Senator Bernie Sanders for not being candid with voters about the costs of his plans.
I think we need to be candid with voters. I think we have to tell them what we're going to do and what it's going to cost.
In the first debate since President Trump ordered a strike against Iranian General Soleimani, the candidates spent time discussing foreign policy.
I said 13 years ago it was a mistake to give the president the authority to go to war.
We have a situation where he got us out of the Iranian nuclear agreement. As president, I will get us back into that agreement.
Obviously, Mr. Trump has no strategy.
And the elephant in the room, Sanders denying that he told Elizabeth Warren in 2018 that a woman couldn't win the presidency.
Anybody knows me, knows that it's incomprehensible that I would think that a woman
could not be president of the United States.
Senator Warren responding.
I disagreed. The only people on this stage who have won every single election that they've been in are the women, Amy and me.
The moment getting perhaps the most attention happened after the debate, when Sanders extends his hand to Warren and she appears to rebuff it.
The Iowa caucuses are now less than 3 weeks away, and the race is tight. The latest Des Moines Register poll shows Senator Sanders at the top, with former Vice President Joe Biden, Senator Warren, and former Mayor Pete Buttigieg following closely behind. Kenneth.
Yeah, ABC political director Rick Klein called it the Iowa nice debate and said any of those four candidates Megan just mentioned there could win it, Megan. So thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And with the absence of any major fireworks, it may have been tough for any of the candidates to move the needle.
You were just talking about the insight we got from ABC News political director Rick Klein. Here's a little bit more, Rick.
Janae and Kenneth, Democrats tiptoeing around the major attacks in their final exchange before the voting starts. A status quo debate, and you could say the status quo benefits the frontrunner. The question is, which frontrunner? There were really four in Iowa, though Joe Biden is really the national frontrunner. The two liberal candidates, the progressives. So many people thought that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren would have it out on stage at this debate. They basically decided not to. They decided to remain friends, keep that non-aggression pact intact, and essentially saying to voters they recognize the importance of beating Donald Trump. That was a theme of the night. These Democrats have a lot of anxiety. The anxiety is about beating Trump. So many of these candidates feel like they have a path to the nomination. There was really no game-changing moment, no major change in the course correction of this race that came through in this debate. And I think in that shows the confidence of these campaigns as well as their concerns about the path ahead. Janae and Kenneth?
Thank you, Rick. Breaking overnight, police have arrested 2 people after a 16-year-old was shot to death at his high school near Houston. The shooting happened just before dismissal around 4 p.m. at Bel Air High School. The suspected shooter is also a student at the school. He and a friend were hiding behind a convenience store when they were arrested. The motive for the shooting is unknown. Classes today are canceled.
California Governor Gavin Newsom is taking a unique step to try to solve the state's growing homeless crisis. Newsom is placing 100 FEMA trailers on vacant land throughout the state. The move comes days after his budget request for more than $1 billion to fight homelessness. A federal report shows California's homeless population jumped to more than 151,000 last year. That's more than a quarter of the nation's total.
It's a crisis. This is unacceptable. Everybody has the right to be angry and concerned.
$750 million of Newsom's proposed homeless budget will be dedicated to getting people off the streets and into temporary housing.
President Trump's former national security advisor Michael Flynn is asking to withdraw his guilty plea for lying to the FBI during the Russia investigation. Flynn accuses prosecutors of acting in bad faith. His change of heart comes days after prosecutors recommended Flynn serve up to 6 months in prison.
We turn now to the growing outrage after a Delta passenger jet dumped its fuel onto a neighborhood in Los Angeles.
The toxic fuel sprayed several schools on the ground, injuring children, and overnight, new air traffic control conversations came to light, raising new questions. Confusion and concern in Southern California after a Delta plane dumped its fuel, showering people with a toxic mist in this Los Angeles neighborhood.
My friend said that it was raining, but like I didn't see any clouds, and it was very strong, the odor.
Delta says the plane heading to China experienced an engine issue, requiring the pilots to return to LAX. The plane then dumped fuel as part of a normal procedure to reach a safe landing weight. 60 people were treated for injuries, most of them students at area schools suffering eye and skin irritation. They say they thought it was raining.
It was pretty scary. I didn't know what was happening. I was kind of frightened.
Experts say fuel dumping during an emergency usually happens over water or at higher elevations above 5,000 feet, where fuel can evaporate before hitting the ground. But this plane was getting rid of its fuel at just above 2,000 feet.
Usually you're going to want to dump fuel out over the water or over a sparsely populated area and in conjunction with air traffic control. If you're going to dump it on the way to the airport over a city, you really need to have an urgent reason to do so.
But audio from air traffic control released overnight is raising questions about what happened in the air.
We've got it back under control. We're going to come back to LAX. We're not critical.
Okay, so you don't need to hold the dump fuel or anything like that?
Negative. We'll be requesting runway 25 right.
The LA Fire Department is using meters in the area to detect any unsafe levels of remaining fuel, as parents remain concerned about possible health risk.
Insane, and I mean, you would think they would know where they're flying.
Just incredible here, and experts say based on the plane's location, it would have taken the pilots at least 30 minutes to dump that fuel over the ocean, so now the FAA is investigating.
Really incredible. Celebrity attorney Michael Avenatti is on the wrong side of the law again. Sources say IRS agents have arrested him in California for bail violations. He was taken into custody during a disciplinary hearing for the state bar. He claims he's innocent. Avenatti is due back in court today.
A former Penn State football player has filed a lawsuit claiming he was hazed by teammates.
Isaiah Humphrey says he and other young members of the Nittany Lions squad were harassed in the shower by teammates imitating sexual acts. The suit was filed against the school, head football coach James Franklin, and a former teammate. Penn State authorities have already investigated the claims and turned their findings over to local prosecutors who declined to take action.
At least one person is dead after a massive explosion at a chemical factory in Spain. The fatality was in a nearby building that collapsed from the force of the blast. Several people were injured, some critically. The cause is unknown, but it's believed to be accidental. Officials say the explosion did not cause an air quality problem.
And angry players are slamming Australian Open officials as heavy smoke from the nation's wildfires continues to impact players.
More matches have been delayed again today due to extreme heat and hazy conditions like the ones you see there. Yesterday, a women's qualifier had to drop out of the match after falling to her knees and suffering a coughing fit during the match. 3 courts have retractable roofs. Officials say they may move matches indoors if conditions continue.
Coming up, the surprise retirement in the NFL.
The star linebacker from the Carolina Panthers calling it quits at just 28 years old. What he's saying after this.
We're back with this chilling video of the moment a middle school gym's roof collapsed while children were there playing. The severe storm hit in Sampson County, North Carolina, about 30 miles from Fayetteville. 3 students were injured, but they have been released from the hospital.
Now to the surprising headline from the NFL this morning. A star player is calling it quits.
And he's not even 30 years old, making his decision all the more shocking.
This morning, a star NFL player announcing his retirement at just 28 years old.
It makes me sad because I love playing this game. I've played it since I was a little kid, and it's my favorite thing in the world to do.
During an emotional 3-minute video, Luke Kuechly of the Carolina Panthers says he can no longer play as fast and as physical as before.
There's only one way to play this game since I was a little kid is to play fast and play physical and play strong. And at this point, I don't know if I'm able to do that anymore, and that's the part that is the most difficult. I still want to play, but I don't think it's the right decision, so I've thought about it for a long time, and I think now is an opportunity for me to step away with what's going on here.
Kuechly didn't explain why he can't play as strong.
And he throws it right to Luke Kuechly.
But the linebacker has been plagued with head injuries, missing 7 games in recent seasons because of concussions. The speculation about health concerns was all the talk overnight on ESPN.
Something since the end of the season triggered the fact that Luke Kuechly doesn't feel like he can play at the level that made him one of the best linebackers in the NFL, and one only has to speculate that could be concussions.
Kuechly, who signed a 5-year contract worth $61 million back in 2015, says he hopes to still be part of the game.
Thank you, everybody in the NFL, for your constant support, and now it's time to move in a different direction.
And moving on to that new video out of Iran showing the shoot-down of a packed airliner by the Iranian military a week ago today. Let's go across the pond to Julia McFarland in the London Bureau for the latest. Julia.
Kenneth, good morning. Yeah, so there's this new video that has been posted by the New York Times, which appears to show 2 missiles striking that Ukrainian passenger plane that was hit a week ago today. The paper says that it has verified this footage. And it says that the fact that the plane was struck by 2 missiles explains why the plane's transponder stopped working in the initial moments from the flight recordings that people have been analyzing. It says that the transponder was destroyed by the first missile before the second missile eventually brought the plane down. But in other developments, Kenneth, Iranian media report that the IRGC have taken into custody the man who is believed to have filmed video which was widely circulated last week. That was the first video that appeared to show the plane being struck before it crashed down to the ground on fire. Now, Iranian authorities yesterday said that they had arrested a number of individuals in association with the downing of that plane. They also said that they arrested around 30 people for taking part in, quote, illegal acts. That's believed to be a reference to the wide-scale anti-government protests in the last few days. But interestingly, a journalist in London, who is the man who posted the footage, he has been tweeting that the Iranians have got the wrong man. He insists that his source is safe, tweeting they have arrested the wrong person regarding the footage of Flight 752 in Iran. The person who is the source of the video is safe, and I can assure you that the IRGC are orchestrating yet another lie.
Okay, moving on to the Philippines, Julie, where thousands are fleeing as a volcano about 50 miles from Manila is expected to violently erupt at any time. What are you hearing from our team on the ground there?
Right, so our Bob Woodruff has just landed in the Philippines, and he's going to be reporting for Good Morning America, and kind of some incredible apocalyptic scenes emerging out of the Philippines, where wide-scale ash clouds have descended on so many homes, farms, villages, buildings. Now, the authorities have kept the alert level at 4 out of 5, warning that an eruption is expected, possibly within hours. Despite that, ignoring all these government warnings, a number of residents who live in that 10-mile danger zone around the volcano, they have gone back because a lot of them, this is a rural area, they've gone back because they've got livestock and they've got animals and they're keen to see if they're okay. A lot of people going back to tend their chickens and their cows who have been blanketed in ash and are not doing really well. Really, really heartbreaking scenes. People trying to keep their homes and their animals safe. Now, almost 500,000 people live in that 10-mile danger zone, and the authorities have demanded a complete evacuation of everyone in that area. Now, the Taal volcano, it erupted initially on Sunday, but they are expecting another possible explosive eruption, the authorities are saying. But that's not the only danger people face there. They face mudslides from all that ash being moved around by heavy rain. They face fissures and tremors, and of course that eruption, which could be devastating.
All right, thinking about all the people there, Julia, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Kenneth.
All right, let's get a check of our notifications, starting with a big surprise at the airport. Grandma greeting her family in...
Yep.
For it. There you go.
A T-Rex costume. She's like, I'm grandma.
Grandma.
Yeah.
And
Just
now
love it.
from grandma to what's been called the oldest material on Earth.
Not you, Grandma.
No. The other oldest material on Earth, said to be 5 to 7 billion years old.
Yeah.
Scientists believe the Earth is only about 4.5 billion
Apparently
years
this
old.
stardust came in on a meteorite
Stardust.
back in like 1969 or something.
50 years ago.
It's just incredible there.
Incredible.
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 And next to the robots who want to be Instagram famous.
Really incredible.
Don't we all?
These 3D animated models are becoming influencers on social media.
Using bots on Instagram.
You wouldn't even know, would you?
So that really, you know what, that protects your identity. If you want to use a bot instead of,
Yeah, it's incredible.
That is our question of the day. Would you follow these artificial influencers?
If you follow a dog influencer, you might as well go ahead and vote. Throw your name in the hat and say you would.
Yeah, tell us what you think in the comments or tweet us at ABC News Live. And watch out for the cold in Alberta, Canada, because look what happens. Bubbles freezing at negative 40 degrees.
That's a shame it can even get that cold.
Now you got a nice little snow globe from just a bubble that was created from soap and water.
Really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right, let's move on now to the elected prosecutors from across the country coming to the defense of St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner, the chief prosecutor in St. Louis, who's suing her own city, its police union, and others. She's alleging a racist conspiracy that's meant to push her out of office, but police say she's just not good at her job. ABC's Steve Osunsami has the details.
Kim Gardner, the first black prosecutor ever elected in St. Louis, just dropped a bombshell, an explosive lawsuit accusing the city and the police union of a racist conspiracy aimed at stopping her from doing her job. Her complaint says that local authorities have broken a federal law that dates back to the late 1800s and was meant to fight the Ku Klux Klan. The lawsuit paints a pattern of racist conduct by some of the officers on the St. Louis police force.
We have to make sure the powerful few are not able to manipulate the system.
In 2016, she won in a landslide. From the start, she says her progressive approach to criminal justice put her immediately at odds with some on the police force and in the community.
I was stopped for having my lights off on Christmas Eve. When I was delivering Christmas cards to the post office right down the street from my office, I was stopped and held for over 15 minutes just because someone could.
Her office has shared with us copies of the hate people have sent her in the mail. The naked racism is too much to read here. And some even threaten her life. For example, time to go away forever. If you don't leave, something will be done about you, even if it's me.
They leave their addresses on the mail to make sure I know who they are.
Gardner's lawsuit names her employer, the city of St. Louis, as well as the head of its Police Officers Association, saying that the defendants worked against her to thwart and impede her efforts to establish equal treatment under law for all St. Louis citizens at every turn, to remove her from the position to which she was duly elected, and perhaps to show her successor what happens to circuit attorneys who dare to stand up for the equal rights of racial minorities in St. Louis. The Police Officers Association of St. Louis is not taking any of this lightly.
Make no mistake, this is the last act of a desperate woman who is simply trying to silence her critics. We will not be silenced.
You must leave immediately. No justice! No!
The cries for criminal justice reform in this country are now loud and have grown more impatient since the 2014 police shooting death of Michael Brown in Ferguson. The case, just 10 miles from St. Louis, launched a national debate over the policing of black Americans.
If you don't want to make history, go home.
We're the ground zero that started Ferguson, that has the conversation of the reform efforts that you hear and see around this country.
After Ferguson, Gardner says that the inequities of the legal and justice system are just no longer acceptable. As soon as she took office, she dismissed some 30,000 cases that she said were unprosecutable, which didn't go over well with police. And the relationship wasn't helped with her handling of several officer misconduct cases. In September of 2017, when a white police officer was acquitted in the shooting death of Anthony Lamar Smith, St. Louis erupted into protests, and Gardner took a stand with the streets, calling for an independent investigation into police misconduct.
We believe that the police department cannot investigate themselves.
Her lawsuit also points to the findings of the Plainview Project, a report by the nonprofit Gizmos Watch, which investigated public Facebook posts from police officers across the country. Several of the posts by St. Louis officers suggested they looked forward to harming protesters. One read, "Black Lives Splatter." Another depicted a soldier dragging a civilian with the caption, "How to Handle Protesters." And many posts were racist in nature. One, written by an officer who was later fired over his social media use, referred to Muslims as turd goat humpers, while another suggested that March is Stop Blaming White People Month. Several of the 22 officers involved were reprimanded or fired.
2 officers were fired, 2 were suspended for 16 days or more, and 4 received written reprimands. It's not like this went uninvestigated. It's not like it was ignored.
Of all her moves, one of her most controversial was her decision to investigate former Missouri Governor Eric Greitens.
Missouri's governor, and a bombshell report alleging he had an extramarital affair and that he threatened the woman into silence.
Greitens resigned and the charges against him were dismissed. But an investigator she hired for the case is now charged with perjury and evidence tampering. And that's led to the appointment of a special prosecutor who's now investigating her office.
It's all just a grand distraction, isn't it? To distract from the trouble she's in and the trouble that's coming
Jeffrey Roorda, named in Gardner's suit, underlined today how a judge dismissed a case that Gardner brought against 2 police officers, citing several hundred instances of prosecutorial misconduct. Roorda also shares that she has to give a deposition in that special prosecutor's investigation.
Gardner doesn't want to answer for her conduct. That's what this lawsuit is about.
What do you say to the prosecutors who came down to support her today, keeping in mind they're all black women?
I say go home. Your own cities are a disaster because you're conducting yourself the same way Kim Gardner is, and go home. We don't need Kim Gardner. We don't need you.
Gardner's supporters strongly disagree. This is a fight they say is worth having.
We have many good people on the police department, but they're stopped by a divisive racial undercurrent that is taking place in our city, that's taking place in the police department, because the people are tired. The people want change, and we're not backing down.
Our thanks to Steve. Haven't heard the last of this one. We'll see how it plays out.
Absolutely. Well, coming up, a busy day ahead in politics.
Where the Democratic candidates are headed now after last night's debate when we come back.
Here's what to watch out for today. The House is set to send the articles of impeachment to the Senate after a month-long delay. Speaker Nancy Pelosi is setting the process in motion with a vote to appoint the lawmakers who will prosecute the case against President Trump. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said the trial is expected to get underway by next Tuesday.
Meanwhile, President Trump is scheduled to sign a partial trade deal with China, though full details of the agreement remain secret. In the so-called Phase 1 deal, China will agree to purchase billions in U.S. agricultural products and end its practice of forced technology transfer for foreign companies that do business in China. But the agreement leaves many sources of tension unresolved.
And Democrats running for president will try to keep the momentum going after last night's debate. Several candidates will be attending the Native American Presidential Forum 2020 in Las Vegas.
And finally from us on this Wednesday morning, we have some very, very happy news to share from our ABC News family. Our director, Lance, has welcomed.
Look at this.
He and his wife, and they got, how many other kids they got?
They got 2 girls.
And now they've got this beautiful
sisters.
baby boy here. It was born Monday, 7 pounds, 11 ounces. A big old congratulations to Lance.
They're gonna have their hands full.
They sure are.
So precious.
Love it. Oh, and the music.
Oh.
So sweet. Soon to be you.
Soon.
But we won't be seeing your baby.
Nope.
Won't see that face. All right, that's it for us on this Wednesday.
Have a good one.